So GoogleVis is a pretty amazing package. It gives you access to most of Google's visualization tools that they have. So motion charts we already covered, interactive maps we'll go over in a minute. Interactive tables, line charts, bar charts. They even have things that'll make like a little speedometer based on a graph or a metric that you want, and so on. So just go to the documentation for Google Vis and it'll show you a bunch of them. It's really well documented. They both have a vignette and of course the package documentation. So interactive graphs are a great way to use Google Vis because the mapping stuff is hard, but Google's done a lot of it for you already. So if you want to create JavaScript maps that have little pop-ups over the countries that you specify and have it nice so that you can embed it in a web page or a Slidify presentation or a knitter presentation or a knitter document or so on, it's not so bad. So here's an example right here. You can see in our Markdown presentation, it actually does the interactivity. Okay, and of course you can zoom in if you want and do things like this so that this is just specifying the options. Now while we're on the topic of options, there's a million different options. I give you a link down here that show you where the options occur, what page, that you can pass as arguments to your Google Vis chart. So how that works is just as in an options command as a list, you need to name them right and give them the right value. And then you need to use this syntax that is like, I guess it's just JSON syntax, but as long as you can, but you probably don't need to know any JSON. You just actually need to, kind of look at it once or twice and, get used to it. And then I think it should be no problem. Okay, so here's an example of just doing a line chart. And the last thing I want to talk about is the idea that you can just merge multiple plots together. So that's just using gviz merge. And then here's an example. After you've done it, here's the left-hand plot. You see our plot, you see a table, and you see a chart all together. Okay? So we'll go through a code example of all these things. Here's how you can just see, of course, the code. We already talked about that. Just we'll print out the code. And then, like we mentioned, you can embed the results in a Markdown document, just like we've done in this exact document. An important thing, I think, there's two things. One is make sure you have the most current versions of everything, R, Slidify, knitter, whatever it is you're using. And then the second important thing is results as equals as is in the chunk options. That I haven't had it won't work otherwise, but then you can get it to work after that. And I've done this a bunch of times between the last iteration of this class and the next one, and I've seen that this is a pretty finicky process, and you tend to have to tweak around with it a little bit, but you usually get it in the end. Often I have to reinstall things. Make sure you clear the knitter cache and that sort of thing, and eventually you'll get it. But it seems to be a little bit of a persnickety thing. But once you get it once, then it'll be fine. Okay, so let's start going through some of the code and generate some interesting graphs. Okay, so let's, as a first thing, generate this chart. So before I show you anything, let me just show you the data frame that we're going to display. Okay, so there's the country names. Okay. It has a value that's going to go into the pop-up, and then online true or false. I think at this point we're just going to use the country and the profit variable. Okay, now when we look up at our code, what we see is we're gviz geochart. Okay, exports. Okay, that's just the data frame. Location var is equal to country. That's just the variable name country. It's going to look for a text field that has the country label names. And the color variable is profit, okay? And then the options, this is just formatting options. Okay, so let's do that. And then I'm gonna, once again, plot it so we can see it. Okay, and it brings up a web page. There you go. Look at that. Pretty cool. That is pretty fancy for almost no effort. Okay, now let's go down to specifying a region. Okay, gviz geochart again. And then here we specify region equals 150. That's going to zoom in on that region. Let's try it. G2. Okay, now if we do plot G2, bam, right there, Western Europe. Okay, looks good. Okay, so now let's just go through some of our options and see how they're set. Again, this we're just going to create a very simple line chart. Okay, let's create this data frame right here. There it is. Okay, there's our data frame. You know, maybe US, Great Britain, Brazil, value 1, value 2. Okay, now let's create our GVis chart. We'll call it line with a capital L. And then if we do plot line, now brings it up. Hello world, it says, and then it's just got this simple plot. So look at the way we're setting the options there and connect them back to the plot. I think it'll be pretty clear to you. The JavaScript notation is a little bit annoying if you're not used to it, but you know you're really just passing the options exactly as Google Charts wants you to pass them, right? There's no translation going through. So it's good to know because at some point you might want to create a Google chart using like Google Docs or something like that and have the options set in the same way that you have them set here. Okay, last thing we want to do is create multiple plots together. Okay, here we've created our geo chart just like we did before. Here's a table, so this is just an example of creating a table, but again, this is just taking our data as is and creating the table. The motion chart that we have from before. Okay, and then what I'm going to do is merge the geo chart and the GVis table in one plot, and then horizontal equals false means it's going to stack them up one on top of each other, and then I'm going to merge this new plot and the other one together, horizontal equals true, side by side. Okay, now if I plot GTM, there it's going to bring it up, and there you see. Now it looks pretty nice, right? It's got the plot up here, right? It's got the printout of the data frame there in an interactive table, and then it's got the motion chart over here. Okay, so that's pretty, and you can see some of the options. You can set the background color and that sort of thing. But like this is a pretty nifty little plot with relatively little code. It's amazing. So, and it's really just because Google's plotting library is going to be doing all the hard work in the back end. And that's why this takes so little code. So play around with this, create some Google charts. I think you'll be happy at how easy it makes Google Charts, and try a couple of these for homework.